just for you on a cross someone died. You know how it feels, nice to surrender, have your sins washed away, never to be remembered, and know as real. Tell me, do you know how it feels? How does it feel to know you're a child of the King? Your heavenly Father owns everything. And how does it feel to know you are loved by the one who created the stars up above? How does it feel to know you're alright when you lay your head on your pillow each night and know how it's real? Tell me, do you know how it feels? How it feels when your cold heart is melted and tears started flowing the moment you felt it. Do you know how it feels to know you've been changed, yet it seems that the whole world has been rearranged? Do you know how it feels wherever you roam, you still get a feeling that you're not at home, knowing heaven is real? Tell me, do you know how it feels? And how does it feel to know you're a child of the King? Your heavenly Father owns everything. How does it feel to know you are loved by the one who created the stars up above? How does it feel to know you're alright when you lay your head on your pillow each night and you know that it's real? Tell me, do you know how it feels?
And man, that's the first. That's brand new. Praise the Lord. I like it, and I do appreciate them being willing to do that, and I do appreciate them using their gifts and talents for the Lord. And that's just exactly what we're going to talk about here in just a moment. 1 Corinthians chapter number 12. If you would find your place there, we're going to turn there, but we're primarily going to be in a different passage. But we are going to begin reading here in chapter number 12 here, and we'll read here, and then I'll tell you where to turn after that. So once let's stand in honor of the reading of the Word of God. 1 Corinthians chapter number 12. I am grateful that you're here tonight. Let's begin reading tonight. And if it starts cutting in and out, y'all just smile and nod, and I'll try to stay up here close, and we'll turn this one back on. He said, "Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. Ye know that you were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led. Wherefore I give you to understand that no man speaking by the Spirit of God calleth Jesus accursed, and that no man can say that Jesus is the Lord but by the Holy Ghost. Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are differences of administration, but the same Lord. And there are diversities of operations, but it is the same God which worketh all in all. But the manifestation of the Spirit," look at this, "is given to every man to profit withal." Now I want you to turn your Bibles over to 1 Peter chapter number 4. And we're going to read these 3 verses here in just a moment. So once you turn to 1 Peter chapter number 4, look back up here, and we're going to pray, and I'm going to let you be seated. Let's pray together. Brother Terry, take us over. Amen. Thank you tonight for standing, and we'll read here in just a minute. But if you remember last week, I quoted someone. Now, I don't endorse this individual, and I told you that this last week. We pretty much disagree on every policy and on every belief and everything that he's ever come out said. But this was a good statement. And he made this statement. He said this: "The saddest thing in life is wasted talent." That's a profound statement. It really is. The saddest thing. In a nutshell, turn this one on, Jared, if you would, and I'll stay here and try not to move. In a nutshell, it's a challenge for us to use the talents and the gifts which God has given us. Now, we did talk a little bit about this concept last week, that there is a difference. If you want to get to technical terms, there is a difference between talents and gifts. There are certain people that are talented who are not gifted of God for those talents because they're not saved. God hadn't equipped them with those things. although it was God that gave them that talent. All right, so, but for the sake of the audience, if you would, for the sake of the assembly that's here tonight, we're going to kind of use these terms synonymously, and I think it's rightfully fitting that we can do that. And so understand this. It's a challenge for us to use those talents. I asked you 3 questions last week, and I hope that you let these set in your mind. Number 1, I asked you a question: why are you here? Remember the question I asked: why are you here? In other words, why are you at this church? That is not a philosophical question for you to analyze and stargaze about, well, what is the meaning of life? No, why are you at this church? Why are you at Hope Baptist Tabernacle? Why do you believe that God led you here of all the churches, and there's a blue million of them in Davie County, Yadkin County, and Iredell County? Why do you think God put you here? Well, God put me here to sit on a pew and just soak up blessings and just have somebody to bless me. If that's why you think God put you here, you're probably drastically misinterpreting the will of God for your life. All right, but why are you at this church? Then the second question I ask you is what are you doing here? Preacher, it's the same question. No, it's not the same question. What are you doing? Are you doing anything? It's sad today when you look at, there's an 80-20 principle we learned in Bible college, and you can see this really at work, at job site, anywhere. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Now, we understand that in a secular society, but I'm just going to tell you something. It ought not be that way in the house of God. It shouldn't be that way among people that are sold out and surrendered and determined by the help and by the grace of God. I want God to use my life. What that means is there's going to be a time that we're going to roll up our sleeves and be doing something. Right? Amen. 2 of us said amen. But that's the truth of it. All right? 80% of the people ought to be doing all the work rather than 20% of people doing the 80%. All right? And so what are you doing here? Then number 3, what could you be doing here? What could you? You say, well, preacher, I don't feel like I'm really making much use of my talent. Okay, then what could you be doing? What is it in your life that God has gifted you with and God has give you talents to do that you're not using for the glory of God? We got people doing everything everywhere, but when it comes to church service, they're just sitting back and letting somebody else do it. And I'm telling you, that's not what God gave us talents for. That's not why God gave us gifts. And we're going to look a little bit to answering that question. We discussed the context, and I'm running through this. Man, I run through the review Sunday night. I was so worried about the time Sunday night. And so I don't want to hit it that quick. But we discussed the context of 1 Corinthians 12 about the first thing, a primary understanding of gift and talents. First of all, there's a variety of them. There's a bunch of them. God gifted people differently for different things, for different purposes. Everybody's gifts are not the same. Everybody's talents are not the same. Everybody's strengths and everybody's weaknesses aren't the same. There's a variety of them. The Bible talks about the diversities of gifts, difference of administration, diversities of operations, but all of these things, they're given by the same Spirit. In other words, there's order in those things because it's God that's distributing those things to accomplish His purpose. And when we understand that God has an order, God has a purpose about that which He's doing, we can understand and appreciate the value of these gifts. Talked about, again, the value. I thought it was interesting, maybe not to you, but there's 2 things that keeps us from serving. Number 1, we undervalue the gifts that God has given us. And then number 2, we overanalyze the gifts that somebody else are using. And he deals with both of those in 1 Corinthians chapter number 12. Hey, listen, just because your gift is not what somebody else's is, don't devalue the gift that God, it's God that gave you that gift. Listen, I don't mean this to be irreverent, but if you say, well, preacher, my gift's not important, well, you need to take that up with God because He's the one that gave it to you. Apparently it was important because the God of the universe, the God of all creation, the God that hung the sun, moon, and the stars, the God that by Him all things are now consisting, is the same God that gave you that gift. And so if that's the kind of God that gave you the gift, it may be more important than what you think it is. It may be more, matter of fact, I've used that a little facetiously. It is more important than what you think it is. All right, but then also we can get to where we underappreciate or we underview someone else's gift. All right, and so it's how we view and appreciate each one, and then how we value gifts in general. So we discussed the practical applications of those, and then we left off with this: the personal practice or putting your gifts to use, and that's where we're going to pick up tonight, if the Lord will help us. Over in 1 Peter chapter number 4, and I told you to turn there, and I'm not going to have you stand, obviously, again, but we're going to use this text, if the Lord will help us, to answer, hopefully, this question. So then, if I see the value in these gifts, if I understand that it was God that gave me these gifts, then I need to understand, how do I put my gifts to use? How do I put my gifts to you? Is this too loud? Am I too loud? Okay. All right, how do I put my gifts to use? What do I do? Well, there's 2 or 3 things that I want us to look at if the Lord will help us tonight. Number one, practicing, if you would, the gifts. Practicing your gift or your gift. Because some people have more than one. Probably if we're true, probably most of us have more than one. God's given us different avenues that we can serve in different capacities. All right, but when I say practicing, we often use that terminology talking about doctors. All right, he's practicing medicine. Now, I wish they'd stop practicing on me. You know, I wish they'd hurry up and get good at it, and let's get something fixed. Now, obviously, I'm carrying on a little bit, but we say practicing medicine. Oh, it's the same idea. In other words, it's putting those gifts to practice, into practice. That doctor went to medical school, hopefully. And he learned all these things. And so he's got all of these talents and he's got all of these abilities and he's got all of this knowledge. But if he doesn't use those things, if he doesn't put them into practice, they're of no benefit. They're really of no good to anybody. They're of no benefit. They're of no use to anybody because he's not using the talents that he has. It's the same way among God's people. We can be gifted with the greatest things and the most profitable things. And it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me how that God puts people in certain places to fill certain gaps. Man, it's amazing to sit back and watch God orchestrate all of those things. But the problem is that sometimes God puts people here, and the people are in place to do it, but they won't serve. They won't put it into practice. It's not God's fault that it's not being done. God's put them here. They're just not putting them into practice. All right, now let's look at a few things. When we looked at the message from last week, we dealt with the value of spiritual gifts. You see, 1 Corinthians 12:7, remember we talked about how he said that he give it to profit withal? That means it's a benefit to everybody. Those gifts that were given benefits everyone in that area. And so we know that they're valuable, but unless they're practiced, they're going to be of no use. Now, here's the interesting thing. I'm going to read verse 8, 9, and 10 of 1 Peter chapter number 4. Would you read along with me? He said, and above all these things, have fervent charity among yourselves. And by the way, if we stop right there, he measures a lot. And it's amazing the parallel, isn't it? Because in 1 Corinthians chapter number 13, you have all of these gifts and the diversity of gift. Or chapter 12, you have the diversity of gift. And then when you get to chapter number 13 of 1 Corinthians, what's he deal with? Charity. He said, if I can speak with tongues and I have all of these things and have not charity, it's a sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. All right, here the same thing in the context of using these gifts. He starts off with dealing with this thing of charity. And I believe that it's a sign, the Bible, the Word of God teaches us that it's a sign that we love God by the way we love the brethren. We love the people of God. We care about the people of God. Now put that in your brain. You're going to need that in just a minute. The basis of all of these things is that we care about each other. We love each other. Listen, I know that sometimes people are aggravating. I know that. I know that I'm aggravating. I know that there's times that I aggravate people. I think it's my gift. And apparently I don't mind using it. I mean, not intentionally, but I'm very talented at it. I mean, I can aggravate people. Ask my kids. Ask mom and dad. Ask my grandkid. Man, I love to aggravate my grandbabies. I can't help it. I can't help it. I mean, I just can't stand it. They'll watch a movie. I'm singing some stupid song in the background just to carry on with them. Shh. We got a video of Chloe used to shushing me all the time. She started, I said, shh. She started, shh. I mean, she just, I just aggravate. But when I don't remember what in the world I was talking about. That's what you get for being ignorant. Loving each other. Caring about each other. I know we can all be aggravated. We can all get frustrated. But at the end of the day, man, we got to love the people of God. Yes, sir. We ought to love the people. We don't have to like everything about them. We don't have to like everything they do. But I'm talking about we're God's family. One of the hardest things for me to watch is to watch turmoil within a family unit. If you've ever been in a family, I'm going to tell you, if you've ever been in a family, it's taxing when there's turmoil in your family. Some of you have experienced it. You're trying to make things right. You're trying to do everything that you can to make peace. And I'm talking about it's just like the least little thing you say, it's World War III. Man, that's taxing. It ought not be that way in the house of God. We ought to love each other. We're part of the same family, been birthed into the same family of God by the same blood, adopted in, grafted in by the grace of God. But he says here, and above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves. I like this. For charity shall cover the multitude of sins. If we really love people, it makes up for a lot. We kind of overlook some of our ignorance. We can kind of overlook some of the things why we love them. Now, that's not an excuse to walk over people and to, act like you don't have any sense and be a jerk. And it's not that. But man, if we love people, when people make a mistake, you know what we'll do? We'll help them instead of crucifying them. Right. We'll try to restore them, like the book of Colossians chapter 6 or Galatians 6 says. We'll try to encourage them and get them back in. So he says, love the brethren. Then he says, verse number 9, use hospitality one to another without grudging. But look at verse number 10. As every man hath received the gift. Now listen to these words. Even so minister. Do you see that word minister? How can I put my gift to use? It's found in this word minister. Minister. I'm going to show you some things if the Lord will help us. The word minister means to minister a thing to one, but it means to serve one with or by supplying anything. So he tells us what we're to serve with. We are to serve one another with and by the gifts that God has equipped us with. And so when we look at these gifts, now here's what religion oftentimes says. The gift is given. Look at me and how wonderful I am because I have this gift. That's what went on in 1 Corinthians about tongues. That was an outward, open gift that, man, wow, he can do. No, it's not about looking at me. It's about me using the gift that God has given to serve other people with that gift. Now, it's to minister. And so as we look at how to use our gifts, then we cannot bypass the word minister or ministry. All right, minister here is literally the same word that you find over in the book of Acts, you find elsewhere, the same word that we would use for deacon. Doulos, it's a servant. It's the same word. All right, which that word, you know what that word means? It literally means to wait tables. You know what we would call them, hey, you walk into a restaurant. And I'm not diminishing the office of a deacon. It's a great thing when you have people that's the attitude of Christ. He took upon himself the form of a what? Of a servant. Okay, and so when you go to a restaurant, oftentimes they'll have a hostess. And that hostess will take your name and tell you it's going to be an hour and 45-minute wait. No, we don't take reservations. We don't take call ahead seating. So what do you take? We take your money and you take a seat outside. But you'll go and they said, hey, your hostess are here. And then they say they'll take you to the table. And what do they say? Your server will be right with you. Your server will be right with you. Now, I don't know about y'all. Anybody happy to see your server? By the time you've waited an hour, 45 minutes for a table, you're ready for somebody to bring you some tea. Amen. And you appreciate that person. You really appreciate them when they keep coming back so your tea glass don't get empty. You know what you say? They're a good servant, right? Okay, they're using the talents. They're using them well. Now, there's some of them that's sorry. There's some of them that have the ability to grasp a tea pitcher and to lift said tea pitcher off of table and to walk progressively to your table and to pour tea into your glass. They're equipped to do that. It's amazing. They're gifted in that area. But some just refuse to use the gift. Hey, same way. There's a lot of people, we can laugh about that. There's a lot of people in the house of God. They're equipped to do a service, but they just refuse to do it. All right, so ministry is literally serving. Can I tell you the greatest way you'd ever use your gift is to serve God with your gift. Now let's look at a few things. First of all, can I tell you this? Practicing the gift is a privilege. You see, so many times we look at it like a burden. We look at it, why? Because we roll up our sleeves when we're working. And let me tell you why it becomes a burden, I believe oftentimes. Because 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work. When that's the case, then serving the Lord becomes a burden. You know why? Because you burn out. You wore out. Now listen, there's nothing wrong with somebody saying, preacher, I need a break. All right. But if you're not doing anything, you don't need a break. I'm trying not to look in it. I'm moving. Listen, if you're not doing anything, you need a break. You don't need a break. I've seen people at work like that. You know, They think that there's a 15-minute work period, and then the rest of the day they're on break. You know, for 15, I'm going to give you 15 minutes every 2 hours. I'm going to give you all I got. But for the other hour and 45 minutes, man, I'm on break. I need some water. No, what they need to do is they need to get off the water cooler and they need to go to work. That's what they need to do. Listen, there's too many people in the house of God. They feel like that, hey, I'm here Sunday morning. Man, I'm really serving Jesus. They ain't done nothing. They're just soaking it in and letting somebody serve them. Boy, I give them a tithe. Boy, I'm serving the Lord. No, you're obeying the Lord. I come to the house of God, preacher. I come to church. I'm serving the Lord. No, you're obeying the Lord. There's a difference. I'm talking about serving, waiting tables, if you would, rolling up your sleeves and getting involved in the work of God and the ministry of the things of God. It's a privilege. You say, well, preacher, that's just preaching. You don't have any scripture for that. That's not what Paul told Timothy. Paul was instructing Timothy, a new servant, getting ready to go minister to a crowd of people, written down in that what we call pastoral epistle of 1 Timothy. Paul said, Timothy, and I thank Christ Jesus our Lord, who hath enabled me, for that he counted me faithful, putting me into the ministry. He said, Timothy, I thank the Lord that God has enabled me and give me the privilege to serve and to be involved in the service and the ministry of the Lord that saved me. It's a privilege. Can I tell you, we ought to get the mindset, it's a privilege for me to be able to serve God. You say, preacher, I'm just wore out. I'm burnt out. Listen, take a step back, pray and ask God, God, would you help me to reflect my focus? Or help me to redirect my focus? Help me to reflect on what it is that you've called me to do and you've enabled me to do. And maybe you need a break. Listen, maybe you need to take a step back. That's okay. But don't lose sight of the fact that it is a privilege to serve God. Can I ask you a question? This is an honest question. Don't answer out loud, but answer within yourself. Is there ever a time that God says, okay, you've used enough of your gift, just stop using it? Is there ever a time that God has said that? Now, again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's not a time that you need a break. I'm not saying that there's not a time that you focus more on a separate gift than you are this gift. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. But I'm saying this, I don't think there's ever a time in our Christian life that God ever just said, okay, you can sit by and do absolutely nothing. I mean, you don't have to fool with praying, you don't have to fool with reading, you don't have to fool with encouraging, you don't have to fool with hospital. You know, you've paid your dues, sit back and take eat. No, listen, I don't believe we ever find that in Scripture. I don't believe we ever find that. It's a privilege to serve God. What about our passion? Should serving God, should practicing our gifts be a passion? Well, according to 1 Corinthians 16, Paul said in verse number 15, I beseech you, brethren, ye know the house of Stephanas, that it is the first fruits of Achaia, and that they have addicted themselves to the ministering of the saints. To the ministry. They've addicted themselves to the ministry they were passionate about their ministry. Man, I like people that are passionate about their ministry. Sunday night, Brother Rojas was here, for those of you that were here Sunday night. And I can tell you this there's a lot that maybe got lost in translation. When we sat down and had a meeting, there's a lot of language barriers and things that he's trying to see. And exactly. I got exactly. Okay, there's a lot of that got lost in translation. But let me tell you something. You was witnessing a guy that was very passionate about the ministry God's called him to. I talked to a lot of missionaries. By the way, most missionaries are very passionate about their ministries. You ever talk to somebody that's passionate about their ministry? I talk to people that, man, they've had nursing home ministries, and in other words, that's the only ministry in the world. That's where all the church money ought to go. That's where all the time ought to go. That's where the preacher ought to be every Thursday night when they go down to the rest home. Why? They are passionate about their ministry. You ever watch someone that's involved in a soul winning ministry? They're passionate about it. You ever watch someone that's absolutely in love, head over heels with the bus ministry? Everything ought to be about the bus ministry. All the money ought to go to the bus ministry. We ought to have a bus ministry meeting. We ought to have this. And I mean, why? They're not wrong. They're just passionate. They're just passionate. Can I ask you this? What are you passionate about? Do you have a ministry that you're passionate about? Sunday school teacher, are you passionate about your Sunday school class? Are you passionate about working with the young people? Are you passionate about the service of the Lord? Let me tell you something. Ministry and serving God, using and practicing our gifts ought to be done with great passion. And then the actual practice of them. What's he say? As every man, verse number 10, as every man hath received the gift, even so minister the same. I like this phrase. As every man hath received the gift, which is the word, it's the word charisma. It's bestowed by grace. You didn't earn it. But as every man hath received the gift, even so minister the same. In other words, you've got the gift, now minister with that gift. Now that's a simple concept. You know what the thought behind that is? Use your gift. That's not deep. That's not profound. Use your gift. Be who God called you to be. Be who God equipped you to be. I'm glad that Timothy didn't have to be Paul. He said, Timothy, stir up the gift which is in thee. It was Timothy's gift, not Paul's gift. Paul had his own gift. Timothy had his gift. Can I tell you something today? Your gift and my gift may be different, but use your gift. Your gift is not less valuable than my gift. Your gift is not less important than my gift. You say, well, preacher, I don't stand up behind the podium. That's fine. But use your gift. God gave you the gift. Be passionate about it, but put it into practice using your gift. After all, it's the gift that God bestowed upon you. It's not the gift I bestowed upon you. It's not. Now listen, I may try to challenge you. I may try to give you some areas to serve. I may try to get you to pray about something or do something. And you got to figure out where your range of gifts are. Sometimes I can look and I can kind of watch people and maybe find, hey, I think they'd be good in this area or whatever. But at the end of the day, I didn't give you, God gave you that gift. Whether it be the gift of hospitality, whether it be the gift of teaching, whether it be the gift of exhortation, whatever it might be, God gave you that. Use your gift. All right, second of all, we talked about practicing the gift. Second of all, what about the parameters of the gift? Where do I use them and does it even matter? Does it even matter? A parameter in general usage means that it's a limit or boundary that defines the scope of a particular process or activity. So where do I use my gift? In what realm? What setting do I use my gift? Well, the first thing, how does it work? How does using my gift, how does putting my gift into practice, how does it work? We spoke last week when we dealing with the why use them. Why do I use them? And we said that one of the purposes was to edify believers. One of the purposes was to edify believers. Exalt the Savior, edify the believers, evangelize the lost. Remember us talking about that? All right, to edify believers. Now let's look again at 1 Peter. Look down at verse number 10. As every man hath received the gift, even so minister the same. What's that next phrase say? One to another. Let's say it together. One to another. Where do I use it? One to another. So in other words, my gift should benefit Brother Darrell. And Brother Darrell should use his gift to benefit me. And Brother Chong's gift ought to be used to benefit Brother Chuck. And Brother Chuck's gift should benefit Brother Mike. And Brother Mike's, Brother Terry's, Brother Terry, Brother Mike. One another. Are you following me? That's the parameters. That's how God worked it out. All right, so even so, minister the same one to another. Now, verse number 9 gives us a quick illustration about that. He says in verse number 9, to use hospitality one to another without grudging. Now, I'm not preaching on hospitality, but I hope that you'll understand that without grudging. You know what that's like, right? That's like inviting somebody to your house and then complaining when they come. Oh, drop by anytime. Who is at my door? It's the preacher. Turn the TV off. Turn the light on. He's coming up there. Shh, 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 shh. Now, you say, what is that? It's not very hospitable, especially if you've invited me there. I'm not talking about the non-grudgingly. All right, but he says use hospitality, but he says one to another. Hospitality is from two words meaning friend and guest. It literally means we are to show this type of hospitality one toward another. I'm afraid you're my guest. I want you to come in and I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to be gracious to you. And it used to be that when people came to your house, you had certain dishes that they were for the guests. I'll give you this illustration. My grandma had We had fine silverware. What were they? They were yogurt cups and McDonald's styrofoam coffee cups that she washed, except at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then we got to use real dishes. Real plate. I don't know what happened to those plates. I have no idea. But they hadn't been used much, I can tell you. I can promise you in the time I was home, probably 5-6 times. But man, they had, you brought out the good stuff for the guests. All right, what is that? Man, that's hospitality. We want to treat them right. We want them. Hey, can I tell you something? He says use hospitality one to another, church. In other words, we ought to have a desire to use our gift to best treat them right, to try to help people and encourage them and edify people. All right, now let's look at why. All right, by the way, I like this. You hear me preach about this all the time. You've heard me give the illustration that there's two words in our King James Bible for another. One is another of the same kind, one is another of a different kind. When he said, I'll send you another comforter, Jesus said, I'm going to send you somebody just like me. Okay, you know what this word another right here means? It's another of the same kind. Now, what he's saying is this. He said, use hospitality one to another, to the people who are just like you, the people who've been saved by the grace of God, the people who've been called out of this world, hey, the people who've been called out of darkness into a great light, the people who've experienced the grace of God, hey, the people who've been birthed into the family of God, hey, the people who are assembled together, hey, separate from the world because God has saved them and changed them, hey, brothers and sisters in Christ. He said, listen, we're just like each other. Use the gifts for that crowd of people. All right, so the parameters of the gift. Believers in Christ just like us. And by the way, it's to be reciprocated. In other words, I have a responsibility to use my gift for the betterment of the house and for the people of God, but you have a responsibility to use your gift for the betterment of the people of God. All right, so what about the scenario? If we look at the scenario, you're going to see why it's so important. How does it work? Okay, it works that we use the gifts one toward another. But why is it so? What does it matter? I mean, really, what does it matter if I choose to use my gift or if I choose not to use my gift? Does my gift matter? And does me exercising that gift, does it really, really matter? Well, I think it's important to understand context. Let's look at where this is put in your passage of Scripture in 1 Peter. All right, and so you have verse 8, 9, and 10, right? Above all these things, have fervent charity among yourselves. For charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another. All right, love each other. Be hospitable one to another. As every man hath received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. All right, so where in Scripture is this put? Well, verse number 1 through 3, you know what it deals with? It's dealing with suffering at the hand of others as well as denying our flesh. Suffering at the hands of others and denying our flesh. You know, sometimes it's not easy to deny our flesh. I don't know how y'all are about it. I like me. I like me better than anybody else does. I'm my biggest fan. Preacher, you're just arrogant. Whatever, so are you. You're your biggest fan. Not me, preacher. I love my spouse more than anyone on earth. And we're going to the marriage retreat just to show everybody how strong our relationship is. But you'll be fighting before you get there. Now, you say, what are you talking about? Man, we're fond of ourselves. And denying our flesh is difficult. And sometimes we can deny our flesh, and sometimes we can have a pity party. Sometimes it can be a real, but beside all that, sometimes it's a real struggle to deny your flesh. I mean, sometimes it's a fight. It's a battle. You ever fought with yourself? And I'm not trying to be silly about this. Have you ever really had a real struggle in an area in your life that you knew that, hey, this is not what God wants for my life, but my flesh wants it so bad? And you've beat yourself down and you've beat yourself down. You know what you're trying to do every day? You're trying to buffet your flesh. You're trying to keep under your body and bring it into subjection. Can I tell you something? After a while, you're going to get tired. You're going to get tired. So you know what we need? We need to assemble together. And maybe somebody needs to use their gift to encourage you in the midst of your battle. To help to come along beside of you and encourage you to say, hey, listen, we're all in this fight together. I know that you're just going through it. I got it. I've been there. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't throw in the towel. Why? It's worth it, but don't quit. Just, what is that? Man, that's using your gift of encouragement, whatever it might be. But that's why we use it. All right, so 1 through 3 deals with suffering at the hands of others as well as denying their flesh. Verse 4, here's a real one. Verse 4 deals with this thought. It deals with what it's like to be rejected by society. Well, preacher, I don't care what people think. You're a liar. I might have been harsh, but we do care what people think. Nobody likes to be rejected, to be an outcast. You don't like to be the brunt of all the jokes at work. You don't like to be shunned at the family reunion. You don't like for people to make fun of you and scoff at you. What about this? You don't like for people to scoff at your children. Lifestyle that you've chosen to live, and you're trying to raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and they're over there poking fun of you. Because I'm telling you right now, you can take it poking fun of you a lot more than you can of your children. Right. They start on your kids, and you watch what happens. You'll lose your sanctified dignity. Yeah. Why? Them's your youngins. Yes, and I'm going to tell you, you can say, well, preacher, it don't bother me. And it might not for a little while, but after a while, it can weigh on you. When everything society is going 180 degrees opposite of where you want to go. Everything. You fight it at the school system. You fight it at the workplace. You fight it among your friends and your co-workers and your relatives. I mean, you fight it everywhere. Why do we need to use the gift? Let me tell you why. Because we ought not fight it here. We ought to encourage each other. But if I get here and I say, I'm not using my gift, he's on his own. I'm not going to use my gift. Let them figure it out. Let me tell you what we're doing. Man, we're hindering the work of Christ. We're not ministering. The word minister, Jesus said that he didn't come to be ministered to, but to minister. Now think about the value. Can you imagine what it was like when Jesus knelt down and he began to wash his disciples' feet? Can you imagine what went through? They said, no, not me, Lord. Lord, no. Let me tell you something. As Christ ministered to meet their needs, he was teaching them a lesson, what he was doing. But he was showing us the value of serving one another. And using the gifts for that. So what it's like to be rejected by society, and oftentimes loved ones and one-time friends. You do understand this tonight. You do understand that oftentimes we're closer with people here than we are people in our own family. You've heard that said. In a nutshell, let me tell you this. We need each other. Whether you realize it or not, we need each other. We need each other. Yet at the same time, you know what we do when we hurt? This is the place we get the farthest from, when it's the place we ought to run to. Man, we've got outlets everywhere, but this is the place that we ought to run to. Why? Because we ought to love each other. What's he say in verse number 8? And above all, have fervent, that's red hot love for each other. Fervent charity, brotherly kind. What is that? Man, this is the place. If I'm going to get help and comfort and encouragement anywhere, it ought to be here. It ought to be here. But we're going to have to be willing to use our gifts to minister in that area. We talked about it before. There's some people just have a gift of encouragement. You just feel better being around them. Some of us don't have that. But I mean, there's some people that, man, you just get around them, and before it's all said and done, you're just encouraged. You can't help it. You just can't help it. You're encouraged, whether you want to feel better or not, you do. Misery loves company. You try to avoid them people when you're miserable because you know that you ain't going to be able to pout long. I mean, they're just encourager. What if they decide I'm not going to use that gift? Man, there's some people that can pray. I mean, they can pray. They can get a hold of heaven. Listen, I don't understand. They can pray. They're just prayer warriors. Man, there's some people that God's gifted them to sing, and you listen to them singing. It's just like a burdenly. You say, what is it? It's a gift. But what if they don't use the gift? I'm telling you, listen, we need to use these gifts for the edification of one another. Verse 12 is going to go down and deal with facing fiery trials. Every one of us, you know where we're at? That's what we're facing. That's going back into the real world. That's why I think coming to the house of God ought to be such a reprieve, because it's just the time that we take a time out and we assemble together to try to get that encouragement, to try to get that help, to try to express how we care for each other. Why? Because in the morning, we're going to get back up and go right back out to the real world, and we're going to face the fiery trials. Where would we be without the people of God? Where would we be without? Where would we be without the encouragers, without those with the gift of hospitality, without the gift of teaching that teaches that? Where would we be? But where would we be if we had all that and nobody used them? He said, listen, this is the parameters of where to use them. Using our gift is the fact that we are to sustain and encourage or edify each other. Practicing the gift, it's a privilege. It ought to be done with passion, and we ought to put it to practice. The parameters of the gift, how does it work? It works among the brothers and sisters in Christ. Why is it important? Man, because of everything that life's throwing at us. Everything that the world is throwing at us, we need to use these gifts. All right, but what about this? Using our gift is pleasing unto God, and I'm done. You do understand that when we use our gift, it's pleasing unto God. God gave us the gift, right? You ever given someone a gift? They open the gift, and in front of you, they're excited. Maybe you bought them a gift or whatever. You ever bought clothes for somebody? Maybe a child or a grandchild. Now, when you got kids or grandkids, they open them shirt boxes, man. They just, I don't want that. But let me tell you what I watch. I watch their mama and their daddy. When I buy them something and I never see them wear it, but they got on something that the other grandparent wore all the time. Oh yeah, I'm in the gall of bitterness right there. It's happening. It's over. So what are you doing? I'm calling Corey. Hey, they're going to ruin that young. Don't let them do that. Put on what I'm just kidding. I don't do that. But you watch. But yeah, you watch them. You come out and they're in that little girl's in that little frilly dress, and you watch Mama. We bought her that dress. Oh, she looks so cute. I found a good deal on this. It's beautiful. Look how cute she looks at that. And every time that little young'un will walk in, that little girl walk in with that dress on. Get that little boy a dirt bike or a four-wheeler. Every time he jumps on that thing, he's grinning from ear to ear. He said, yep. He's using it. Bought it for him. Makes you happy. Why? Because he's using the gift that you gave him. Let me tell you something. God gifted us with something, not so we can put it in the closet, not so we can save it for a rainy day, not so we can keep it from wearing out. God gifted us with something in order to use it, and when we use it, it pleases the God that gave us the gift. But what's it do when we don't use it? Yet God gifted us with it. A couple things quickly. We'll do this quick. First of all, verse number 10 tells us this. He said, as every man hath received the gift, even so minister the same one to another. Look what this says. What's those three words? As what? As good stewards. That means that we are accountable for how a steward is accountable. If you look at what a steward is, a steward was accountable for something in the master's house. Think about Joseph in Potiphar's house. He had access to everything that Potiphar had except his wife. He was accountable to everything that was in his house. He was a governor. He was a steward. All right, so he says, as good stewards. We think of stewardship all the time as dealing with money, but stewardship runs much deeper than money. Think about what we all the time say. When I get to heaven, I want to hear what? Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Right? Well done, thou good and faithful. How are we going to do that? Then we're going to have to be good stewards of the gifts that God has given us. Look what he said. As every man hath received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. Which is that word gift in and of itself, talking about the grace of God. As good stewards, in other words, God give it to us. Let's be good stewards in how we use it. Don't let it go to waste. Don't use it outside the parameters where God give us. But let's be good stewards of the manifold grace of God. All right, and then he says this. Not only do we see it's using our gift pleasing to God and makes us a good steward, but it also tells us specifically in verse number 11, it glorifies God. It brings God honor and glory when we use the gifts that he's given us. Look what he says in verse number 11. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of God. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which God giveth. And so when we do those things, when people see all that's been, you know what they'll say? Man, God gave them that ability. It had to be God. I knew them before they got saved. That had to be God. All right, and so then he goes on to say this, that God in all things may be glorified through Jesus Christ, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. That God in all things may be glorified. So, preacher, I really want my life to glorify God. Wonderful. Then start using those gifts that God gave you. Start using them. Why? Because God gave them to you to use. Can we put it, as we close, right down to where the rubber meets the road? What are we missing out on? Where are the holes in our churches because I didn't use the gifts that God gave me? Where is the lack of edification in believers' life because I didn't use the gifts, or you didn't use the gifts that God has given you? What could our fellowship be if everyone used the gifts that God give us as good stewards? Man, there's no telling why. Because God's gifted each and every one of us. Now, I know I've strongly preached to the church, because we understand that God gifts those which have been saved by the grace of God. So if you're here tonight and you're not saved, man, first things first, you need the Lord. But church, listen, God's gifted each and every one of us. And whatever those gifts may be, you say, preacher, I don't know what they are. Man, pray. Ask God, God, show me. Give me an idea. God, I want to serve you with something. And the only thing I have that's worth serving is what you've given me and what you've made me. God, I want to serve you. Help me to know my gift. Help me to see my talent. Help me to use it for your glory, that I might be able to glorify you, that I might be able to edify the brothers and sisters in Christ, and that ultimately the ministry of Christ will go forward and we'll be able to evangelize the lost. God, help me to use that gift. I mentioned this.